In the stillness of the reef, when the tides are slack and the moon casts a silver glow that barely reaches the ocean floor, the coral kingdom quiets into its nocturnal rhythm. Parrotfish tuck into mucus-wrapped cocoons, crustaceans hunker down in crevices, and most predators retreat to patience. But the octopus begins, with no bones to anchor it, no fixed shape to define it, and no rules it feels obliged to follow. It seeps through the reef like an intelligent liquid, wrapping its 8 limbs not just around prey, but around possibilities. The common octopus, Octopus vulgaris, may look like a soft-bodied anomaly of the sea, but beneath that boneless exterior lies one of the most advanced neural networks in the animal kingdom. Each arm operates with semi-independent control, like limbs with their own brains, able to reach, touch, feel, taste, and even make decisions without consulting the central brain. That brain, meanwhile, is busy solving problems, opening jars, memorizing mazes, tracking time, observing, always observing. Aquarium keepers know this better than anyone. Surveillance footage has recorded octopuses slipping out of their tanks, gliding silently across the room under the cover of night, raiding other enclosures for fish or crabs, then returning before morning rounds. These are not chance escapes. They're premeditated acts of infiltration. One particularly famous case involved an octopus named Inky, who slipped through a gap in the top of his tank, crossed the floor, located a nearby drain pipe, squeezed into the pipe, and disappeared into the sea. The pipe was 50 meters long. It had no light. Inky had never seen it before, and yet he vanished without hesitation. Not a fugitive, a professional. In the wild, the octopus continues its legacy of subterfuge, not as an apex predator, but as an apex manipulator. Camouflage is its most celebrated gift, a neural trick that allows its skin to mimic not just color, but texture, pattern, and even light reflection. Chromatophores, iridophores, and papillae work in concert like a painter's palette fused with a living 3D printer. 1 second, it's a rock. The next, a flicker of coral. Then, a flash of warning color before it vanishes into sand, curling under rubble like smoke returning to a bottle. Yet camouflage is only the decoy. The real deception lies in how octopuses exploit environments. They don't just hide in dens, they construct them. Using rocks, coconut shells, and even glass bottles, they build barriers, false exits, ambush chambers. They've been filmed plugging their dens with shells after entering, then burying the entrance. Some scatter objects to mask scent trails. They don't just hide, they erase themselves from the story. Their mobility adds another layer to their genius. An octopus can pour its body through a hole the size of its eyeball. It can climb vertically, walk sideways, swim backwards using jet propulsion, or simply ooze like spilled ink across the reef. No other predator moves like this. No direction is off limits and no path is permanent. That's why their hunting style isn't about speed or brute force. It's about infiltration, stealth, and timing. Their targets vary. Crabs are favorites. The octopus will reach one arm over the edge of a rock and feel blindly for movement. Another arm circles the other side. It blocks the exit with one, then slides another beneath the crab's belly. The prey is enveloped before it sees what touched it. If the crab retreats into a shell, the octopus doesn't pry. It injects venom. The venom contains both paralyzing agents and enzymes that dissolve muscle connections, loosening the crab's grip from within. What emerges from that shell is no longer a struggle. It's a prize. But even these feats are dwarfed by their problem-solving under pressure. In laboratory settings, octopuses have solved puzzles that baffle rats and dogs. Some learn to recognize human faces. Others rearrange their tanks in symmetrical patterns. Many invent their own games. One octopus in a German lab was caught on video repeatedly shooting a jet of water at an overhead lamp that annoyed it, eventually shorting out the bulb. This wasn't instinct. It was retaliation. The escape artistry isn't just metaphor. It's survival strategy. Octopuses live fast and die young. Most only live 1 to 2 years. They don't pass on knowledge through generations. Everything they do, they must figure out on their own. Their intelligence is solitary, improvisational, and entirely self-taught. When a predator strikes, be it a shark, eel, or grouper, the octopus doesn't just flee. It calculates. It can split the tips of its arms into multiple escape routes, leaving behind a twitching limb to distract the attacker while it vanishes in another direction. It doesn't just survive, it deceives survival itself. And then there's the ink. A last resort, yes, but even this is not just a smokescreen. The ink contains tyrosinase, an enzyme that disrupts smell and taste receptors. It's chemical sabotage. It doesn't just blind, it disorients. And while the predator is left stunned in a cloud of sensory static, the octopus is already halfway down a crevice, slipping into a hole it mapped hours earlier, arms sealing behind it like a hatch. There are even accounts from coral reef night surveys where octopuses, disturbed by dive lights, have been seen covering their eyes with an arm, shielding against the glare as they retreat. That tiny moment, an animal shielding its vision in annoyance, may be the most human gesture you'll see in the sea. But it's not mimicry. It's a glimpse into a mind that's doing what we do, assessing, adapting, reacting. We still don't fully understand octopus intelligence. It's not centralized like ours. 2/3 of its neurons are in its arms. Its memory seems episodic. It dreams, twitching and changing colors during rest periods, perhaps replaying hunts or rehearsing new ones. Its logic, unlike ours, is non-verbal and decentralized, but no less effective. It is alien, not in appearance, but in cognition. And yet, when the reef dims and the sea quiets, you might see the faint ripple of limbs slipping through shadows, suckers testing the texture of a rock, and 2 horizontal pupils narrowing as they study you. Not curious, not afraid, just calculating. Because in the great underwater web of survival, octopuses don't follow the rules. They rewrite them and then disappear. Beneath the glint of a calm ocean surface, where the water shimmers like polished glass and everything below appears to flow in harmony, a different story unfolds, one that contradicts the pristine mythos of dolphins as smiling, benevolent companions of the sea. Dive deeper into the realm of bottlenose dolphins and you don't find innocence. You find hierarchy, control, strategy, even cruelty. In these crystal blue territories, the dolphins are not passive residents. They are the enforcers, and their rules are not always kind. A pod moves through the shallows with synchronized precision, cutting arcs around a school of mullet. At first glance, it appears like a ballet, flashes of silver fish against polished grey skin, the dolphins corralling prey with tight circular sweeps, their echolocation clicks pulsing through the water like sonar drums. But then, the performance shifts. One dolphin body slams a fish with its rostrum, launching it skyward. Another waits to intercept the stunned prey before it hits the surface. This isn't just feeding. It's coordinated, timed, and rehearsed. These predators are not reacting to chance. They're executing routines, choreographed with lethal flair. But the true complexity of dolphin behavior begins when the hunt ends. Dolphins live in tightly knit fission-fusion societies, where alliances are forged, broken, and reformed according to shifting priorities. In many regions, males band together in coalitions to increase access to females, defend territory, and dominate rival groups. These coalitions are not casual friendships. They operate more like criminal syndicates, long-term partnerships built on mutual benefit and enforced loyalty. In Shark Bay, Western Australia, males have been documented kidnapping females from other pods, holding them hostage for weeks, surrounding them constantly, herding them away from escape, and using coordinated tactics to block other males from interfering. This behavior isn't rare. It's systemic. And while it may not fit the human image of dolphins as gentle, intelligent peacekeepers, it reveals a far more unsettling truth. Their intelligence serves social manipulation as much as survival. The darker edge of dolphin society isn't a glitch. It's part of the operating system. Reports from around the world describe acts that veer disturbingly close to sadism. In one study, male bottlenose dolphins in Scottish waters were observed attacking harbour porpoises, chasing them down, ramming them at high speeds, and tossing them with their snouts. The porpoises were not eaten. There was no evidence of interspecies conflict over food. The attacks appeared unprovoked. Post-mortem analysis of the carcasses revealed broken ribs, damaged internal organs, and repeated trauma. This behavior has been repeated in several populations, including in the US and UK coastal waters. The motives remain unclear, but hypotheses include aggressive practice, social bonding through violence, or perhaps a misfiring of infanticidal behavior observed among dolphins toward their own calves. Even play takes on strange forms. In multiple cases, dolphins have been observed passing around inflated pufferfish, gently biting them, not to kill, but to stimulate the release of tetrodotoxin in small doses. This neurotoxin, in large quantities, is deadly. In microdoses, it may create a narcotic effect. After interacting with the pufferfish, the dolphins exhibit uncharacteristic sluggishness, floating near the surface, mouths slightly agape, appearing dazed. This isn't ordinary play. It's pharmacological experimentation, an underwater high. Their intelligence also allows for finely tuned social control. Within pods, dominance hierarchies are subtle but rigid. Dolphins use a wide repertoire of vocalizations, body postures and behaviors to assert authority, express irritation, or signal cohesion. A single tail slap can serve as a reprimand. A tightly arched leap can challenge another dolphin's proximity. Vocal signatures, unique whistles akin to names, are used not only for identification but also for recognition, alliance building, and at times vocal mimicry to deceive or disrupt others. What's striking is how much of this behavior unfolds below the surface, both literally and behaviorally. Humans watching from boats often miss the undercurrents of dolphin society. The breaches, the spins, the aerial displays are merely fragments of a vast social network in motion. Below the surface, a male may flank a female with two allies, keeping her locked in a triangular formation. Another pod may circle, emitting ultrasonic clicks to assert presence. A young dolphin might be harassed by older males for venturing too close to a rival group. These are not random encounters. They're calculated. And while cooperation is a hallmark of dolphin life, cooperative hunting, alloparenting, synchronized swimming, the same intelligence that enables such harmony also creates tension. Competition is high. Competition is. Juvenile males may form gangs, chasing and biting others, testing boundaries, establishing rank. Dominance is often enforced with physical contact, tooth rakes, shallow bites, body slams. The scars left behind form pale stripes on otherwise smooth skin, etched hieroglyphs of a brutal curriculum. Yet despite all of this, dolphins remain evolutionary marvels. Their brains are large, second only to humans in relative complexity, and feature expanded neocortices and limbic systems associated with emotion, empathy, and cognition. They recognize themselves in mirrors, respond to abstract symbols, understand syntax in artificial languages, and pass knowledge across generations. But that very intelligence is immoral. It does not guarantee kindness. It merely enables choice, and sometimes those choices echo our darkest impulses more than our noblest ones. Consider the complexity of a dolphin's mind. It can calculate water pressure to aim sonar clicks at prey buried under sand. It can learn from human trainers to perform sequences of behavior after hearing a single symbol. It can even grasp the concept of create something new and respond with improvised behavior never seen before. This is creativity. But again, creativity is not always benign. In captivity, dolphins have shown the capacity to manipulate, deceive, and even retaliate. Some have learned to withhold behaviors to bargain for better rewards. Others sabotage tasks given to rivals. One famously learned to hide litter in a corner of the tank, then turn in one piece at a time for food, outsmarting its trainers by creating a currency supply. So when you see a dolphin leap through a wave or ride a boat's wake, it's easy to romanticize the moment. But behind those grins is an evolutionary story far stranger and darker than most imagine. These animals are not just playful swimmers. They are strategic social architects operating within layered hierarchies, enforcing roles through pressure, punishment, and persuasion. In the crime world of the sea, dolphins are not the victims. They are the operators, the enforcers, the architects of control. And in some corners of the reef, they are the ones you don't cross. Down in the crevices of coral thickets where light thins into shifting ribbons and the water pressure hushes sound into a slow throb, the reef is a labyrinth. To the casual swimmer, it appears tranquil, an explosion of color and stillness woven into coral architecture. But beneath the surface of this fragile beauty lies one of the most calculated ambushes in the marine world, the moray eel. It doesn't patrol open water like a shark or chase like a tuna. It waits, patient, hidden, ready to let others make the noise while it calculates the perfect moment to strike. At first glance, a moray eel seems like a throwback from a prehistoric sketchbook. Its elongated serpentine body can reach over a meter in length, sliding through narrow tunnels with unsettling fluidity. The head is large, the jaws visibly flexing even at rest, not in aggression but to pump water across the gills. Its skin is scaleless, smooth and rubbery, sometimes mottled like forest camouflage, other times brightly colored, greens, browns, yellows, even blues, depending on species and region. Eyes small but alert, nostrils flicking for scent. But the most unnerving thing about a moray isn't how it looks, it's how it behaves. Unlike most reef predators, morays don't chase. They engineer scenarios. Hidden deep in a crevice, a moray will angle its head just enough to observe the corridor beyond. It may spend hours unmoving, letting the ocean pass like scenes through a peephole. Sometimes it will slide its head partway out, letting the current waft scents of fish and invertebrates into its nasal cavity. But it does not move, not until the environment plays the right card. Occasionally, the moray becomes part of something stranger, a partnership. In one of nature's rare examples of cooperative hunting between species, moray eels and groupers have been documented forming hunting duos. The grouper, a robust, fast predator of the open reef, will swim up to a moray's den and perform a series of rapid head shakes and body tilts, a signal. If the moray is interested, it follows. The two then patrol together, exploiting each other's strengths. The grouper flushes prey from open water into the reef, while the moray probes deep into the crevices, flushing prey into the grouper's strike zone. This isn't passive coexistence, it's strategic alliance. And yet what happens next reveals a deeper layer of behavior. In many instances, the moray doesn't cooperate so much as it opportunistically benefits. It allows the grouper to initiate, to scout, to chase. Then in the moment of confusion, it lunges sideways, seizing the prey the grouper just flushed, or intercepting the escape route for an easy ambush. It contributes minimally to the chase, but often claims a share of the reward. This isn't partnership, it's silent manipulation. The moray eel is the reef's opportunist, its quiet accomplice in a con. Its hunting style reinforces this. Morays are not power hunters, they are precision killers. Once prey enters range, be it a shrimp, fish, or even another eel, the moray lashes with terrifying speed, anchoring its victim with rows of backward-pointing teeth. But here's where it gets more sinister. Morays have a second jaw, an inner set of pharyngeal jaws hidden inside their throat, which shoots forward like a mechanical arm to grip and pull prey inward. This jaw system is unique among bony fish and functions like a biological grappling hook. It's not enough to bite. The moray reels its prey in from the inside, mechanically and inescapably. In certain coral structures, morays exploit geometry. They wedge themselves into choke points, narrow spaces where fleeing fish cannot pivot or turn quickly. These architectural kill zones are chosen, not stumbled upon. Some eels even block one end of a tunnel with their tail, forcing prey to turn back into their jaws. In this sense, they don't merely hunt, they create hunting conditions. The prey loses long before it realizes a predator is present. Unlike ambush predators that rely on camouflage alone, morays use spatial memory. Experiments in controlled reef setups have shown that morays learn the geometry of artificial reefs within hours, where dead ends are, which turns lead to exits, and where prey tends to linger. They'll even switch ambush spots if a prior one proves unproductive. Their success rate increases over time, not because they get faster, but because they get smarter. Morays are also notoriously territorial. A single crevice may be occupied for years. They will defend their den from other eels and even attempt to exclude divers if they feel crowded. Yet despite their fierce reputation, they are mostly cautious. They don't seek confrontation, but they'll never hesitate if cornered. Most injuries to humans happen not during attack but due to provocation, accidental hand placements near dens, or attempts to feed them by hand, mistaking curiosity for docility. Those jaws, once latched, are hard to dislodge. Interestingly, morays lack strong vision. Their eyesight is limited, especially in turbid water. Instead, they rely heavily on smell, using their paired tubular nostrils to pick up minute chemical changes in the water. This olfactory acuity makes them effective nighttime predators, able to locate hidden crustaceans or wounded fish long after visual hunters have retreated. Some species venture out during twilight hours, emerging just as diurnal fish begin to settle and before nocturnal hunters fully activate. This twilight timing grants them access to prey caught between shifts. In captivity, morays show startling adaptability. Some learn to exit water features in search of new enclosures, similar to octopuses, though less gracefully. They can live surprisingly long lives, up to 30 years in aquariums, and often display recognition of handlers. They remember feeding schedules and routines. Though not social in the way dolphins or octopuses are, they are observant and capable of associating patterns and consequences. And yet, for all their cunning, morays remain largely underestimated. Their quiet demeanor, hidden habitats, and infrequent appearances in open water mean they're often overlooked in the reef's hierarchy of danger. But for the creatures of the reef, juvenile fish, shrimp, octopus, the presence of a moray inside a coral chamber is not forgotten. It is calculated into their every move, every darting change of direction. A reef with a moray is a reef with a trap. Because the moray eel doesn't rule through aggression or dominance, it rules through silence. It watches while others act. It waits while others chase. And when the moment is right, when the prey is one corner too deep, or the partner 1 second too slow, it strikes. Not as the predator you see coming, but as the one you forgot was even there. In the still silence of the benthic zone, where sunlight filters down as a faint haze and water movement slows to a gentle drift, the seafloor seems like a place of peace. Grains of sand shift subtly under the lazy pull of currents. Crustaceans trace their paths through soft silt, and tube feet whisper across the substrate like tickling threads. Here lies the sea cucumber, an animal so unassuming it appears more vegetable than vertebrate. But beneath its gelatinous exterior lies one of the most unconventional survival strategies in the marine world. This is not a fast predator, nor a clever escape artist. This is a living contradiction, soft-bodied, slow-moving, yet equipped with a chemical defense system so extreme it borders on biological warfare. The sea cucumber belongs to the class Holothuridae, distant relatives of sea stars and sea urchins. Their bodies are elongated and leathery, often resembling bloated pickles or oversized caterpillars, stretched along the seabed in muted hues, brown, beige, pink, or speckled with iridescence. They move slowly, inching forward using rows of small tube feet, or flexing their entire body to lurch across the terrain. Most species spend their time filtering detritus, digesting organic particles in sand, and excreting cleaned sediments, a vital role in maintaining seabed health. In ecosystems like coral reefs and seagrass beds, their grazing helps cycle nutrients and oxygenate the substrate. By all appearances, they are benign, harmless recyclers. But appearances deceive. When threatened, sea cucumbers don't flee. They rupture. At the first sign of serious disturbance, a probing predator, sudden pressure, or aggressive contact, some species of sea cucumber contract their body wall and forcefully eject part of their internal organs through the anus. These aren't just random chunks of tissue. They are sticky, toxic strands of gut lining known as Cuvierian tubules. The ejection is sudden, forceful, and visibly shocking. In a cloud of mucus and intestinal tangle, a predator like a crab or fish finds itself ensnared, struggling against adhesive filaments laced with toxins that can paralyze or severely irritate gills and skin. This violent self-disembowelment is not fatal. Remarkably, sea cucumbers can regenerate the lost organs over the course of several weeks. But the process costs energy. It's not a move made lightly. Yet in some regions, particularly marine protected areas where predation pressure is lower, researchers have observed sea cucumbers deploying this tactic not just defensively, but aggressively. Instead of ejecting guts when attacked, they expel them toward nearby competitors, other cucumbers encroaching on feeding grounds or resting space. In essence, it's a preemptive strike, a chemical eviction notice, not self-defense, but spatial domination. The implications of this are astonishing. It suggests a degree of environmental assessment and conditional behavior once thought unlikely for such a primitive animal. In some densely populated zones, certain species have been recorded engaging in repeated ejections without clear provocation, possibly to reduce competition for particulate-rich sediment. The expelled tubules not only incapacitate nearby animals, they can coat substrate with a chemical signature that deters return for hours. In tightly packed habitats where space is currency, the ability to clear a patch of seabed is an evolutionary edge. The toxins in these tubules are potent. Many contain holothurin, a saponin compound known to disrupt cellular membranes. To a fish, Inhaling holothurine can cause gill irritation, seizures, and even death. To a crustacean, it's like being sprayed with a biological glue laced with nerve agent. Unlike venom, which is typically injected through a bite or sting, holothurine is broadcasted, a chemical plume unleashed into the environment. It affects not only the target, but any organism unlucky enough to be downstream. Yet sea cucumbers do not rely on this strategy alone. Some species deploy a different kind of defense, evisceration. In extreme cases, they expel not just tubules, but entire loops of digestive tract, essentially hurling their own guts into the water column to confuse and repel attackers. The entrails continue to move post-ejection, undulating in the current and resembling a struggling organism. While the predator investigates the writhing mass, the cucumber contracts, hardens slightly, and slowly retreats under sand or into crevices. It is a biological smokescreen built from living tissue. These behaviors may seem extreme, even grotesque, but they evolved in response to the cucumber's vulnerabilities. With no hard shell, no venomous spines, and no speed, sea cucumbers had to innovate defensively. In their slow, unhurried way, they have become masters of deterrence, not through power, but through biochemical manipulation. Their physiology supports this. Unlike many marine invertebrates, sea cucumbers can alter the stiffness of their body wall using mutable collagenous tissues. When relaxed, they can squeeze into cracks and hollows, becoming floppy and fluid. When threatened, they can tense these tissues, turning stiff and resistant to pressure. This flexibility allows them to fit into unlikely spaces, avoid dislodgement in strong currents, or become harder for predators to grip. It's a defense rooted not in offense but in control, of form, of response, of outcome. Even their reproduction has territorial overtones. In some shallow reef zones, male sea cucumbers release sperm in synchrony, triggered by lunar cycles or environmental cues. The plumes rise like smoke from chimneys, drifting on the tide toward females. But where density is high, competition can lead to premature spawning, with individuals releasing early to flood the field, reducing the chance of rivals' gametes fertilizing available eggs. It's quiet warfare, written in reproductive timing. And then there's their role in the ecosystem. Sea cucumbers, despite their brutal defense strategies, are foundational engineers. By digesting detritus and excreting it as cleaner sand, they contribute to the sediment structure of the seabed. Their burrowing increases oxygen penetration. In areas where sea cucumber populations collapse, often due to overharvesting for the international trade in dried sea cucumbers, known as bêche de mer, reefs suffer. Algal blooms increase, bacterial loads rise, the substrate hardens. These creatures, slow and strange, are critical to the balance of benthic life. But even here, crime creeps in. Overharvesting has made some species scarce, triggering fierce competition among remaining individuals. In certain regions, smaller or younger cucumbers are more frequently targeted by gut ejections, perhaps because older individuals, having learned or evolved through selection, use their chemical tools not only to survive, but to dominate what remains. The reef is a battlefield of patience and persistence, and sea cucumbers, once overlooked, are proving to be far more proactive than passive. In the hierarchy of marine deception and disruption, the sea cucumber is the least expected saboteur. It doesn't move fast. It doesn't strike with jaws or venom. Instead, it weaponizes its own body as a slow-release grenade, a chemical threat in gelatinous form. And when the current clears, what's left is not a predator on the prowl, but a stretch of seabed that now belongs, unchallenged, to the gut bomber of the reef. In the warm shallows of the Western Atlantic and Caribbean Sea, where sunlight casts a wavering mosaic over coral heads and swaying sea fans, a silent predator glides with deceptive grace. Its movement is unhurried, almost theatrical. Fan-like pectoral fins flare like a parade of feathers, trailing behind a body clad in red, white, and chocolate-striped armor. Delicate venom-tipped spines line its back like a crown of blades. It is beautiful, it is lethal, and it doesn't belong here. This is the lionfish, a species native to the Indo-Pacific, but now a dominant and disruptive presence across entire reef systems, half a world away. Unlike other invaders that stumble into new territories and struggle to adapt, the lionfish has not only survived, it has thrived, it has colonized, and it has done so with a level of biological advantage that borders on criminal ingenuity. The lionfish's story in the Atlantic is a case study in ecological subversion. Likely introduced through the aquarium trade in the 80s, either by storm damage or human release, the first recorded sightings off the Florida coast were dismissed as anomalies. But within 2 decades, lionfish populations exploded. Today they occupy thousands of square kilometers across the Atlantic, Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico, with densities sometimes surpassing those in their native range. They didn't just integrate into the food web, they bulldozed their way in. What makes their invasion so effective isn't aggression or speed, it's stealth. Lionfish are equipped with a rare evolutionary advantage: chemical invisibility. Many prey fish rely on olfactory cues in the water, minute chemical signatures left by predators to detect threats. But lionfish don't emit the right signals. To these prey species, the lionfish is scentless, ghost-like. Juvenile fish hover unaware until too late. Shrimp fail to scatter. Small reef fish move in predictable patterns right into its path. It's as if a bank robber entered with no shadow, no reflection, and no alarm trigger. A predator that doesn't exist until the moment of impact. Its hunting style reflects this quiet dominance. The lionfish doesn't chase, it corners. With its massive fanning pectoral fins, it herds prey into confined spaces, against coral, into crevices, or simply between its fins. It then lunges with a short burst, opening its mouth with such velocity that it creates a suction force, pulling prey inward in milliseconds. There is no second strike. Once in range, escape is mathematically improbable. The prey disappears without a splash, without a cry, swallowed by a predator that never gave warning. And it does this repeatedly. A single adult lionfish can consume over 50 small fish in a day. In heavily invaded areas, they have been shown to reduce native fish recruitment on reefs by more than 90%. Species that play essential roles in reef health, algae grazers, cleaners and herbivores, vanish, destabilizing the ecological fabric. It's not just predation, it's ecosystem sabotage. Lionfish aren't invincible, but in the Atlantic they might as well be. Unlike in their native Indo-Pacific range, where groupers, eels and other large predators keep them in check, Atlantic lionfish face no natural enemies. Their venomous spines deter most would-be attackers. Their behavior is unfamiliar to local hunters. And because they reproduce rapidly, females can release up to 30,000 eggs every few days. Their population can rebound faster than control measures can respond. Even their reproduction has an edge. The eggs are encapsulated in gelatinous mucus, which floats and disperses widely via currents. This egg mass is both toxic to many potential consumers and hydrodynamically designed to spread far. A single pair of lionfish can seed hundreds of kilometers of coastline over a season, with larvae drifting on oceanic highways to new territories. There is no central nest, no territory to protect, only expansion, relentless and untraceable. Their physical structure reinforces their dominance. The dorsal, pelvic and anal spines are not just for show, they are tipped with venom capable of causing excruciating pain, tissue necrosis, and in rare cases, systemic shock in larger predators or humans. The venom is primarily defensive, but it reinforces their status as untouchables. Juvenile sharks have been seen approaching lionfish only to retreat after a single encounter. Predators learn quickly. This fish isn't worth the risk. Divers and conservationists, aware of the growing crisis, have launched counter-efforts. Organized lionfish culls are common across the Caribbean, where trained divers spear and remove lionfish by the hundreds. The meat, ironically, is delicious, flaky, white and mild, spawning a campaign to eat the invader. Lionfish derbies, citizen science tagging programs and culinary outreach have been implemented across the region. And yet, despite local successes, the overall invasion continues. Their spread isn't linear, it's fractal. Every reef, every ledge, every submerged structure becomes a potential outpost. What makes the lionfish particularly insidious is how it alters the behavior of other species. In reefs where lionfish densities are high, native fish become more cautious, feeding less and schooling tighter. The community becomes anxious, reactive. Some herbivorous fish abandon open grazing, which leads to algal overgrowth, a threat to coral health. Lionfish don't just consume, they unsettle. Their presence reshapes the daily rhythms of an entire ecosystem. Back in the Indo-Pacific, lionfish are respected but not feared. They fit. They are part of a system that has evolved alongside them for millennia. But in the Atlantic, they are foreign, unmatched, and unsupervised. They are the gangsters of the reef, untraceable, untouchable, and devastatingly efficient. If the octopus is the cunning escape artist, and the dolphin the manipulative tactician, the lionfish is the uninvited enforcer, quiet, calculated, and utterly disruptive. Its rise in foreign waters is a warning about how finely tuned ecosystems truly are. It's not just about which species exist, but how they interact, how they counterbalance, and how easily the entire equation can collapse with one new variable. In the end, the lionfish doesn't roar. It arrives unannounced, stings without warning, eats without pause. And as it fans its ornate fins over yet another patch of coral rubble, it offers no explanation, only silence, and the absence of those it has replaced. In the shallow coastal mudflats of Southeast Asia, where the water runs tea-stained from mangrove tannins and the bottom shifts like a silken quilt of silt, something remarkable glides across the seafloor. At first, it appears to be a banded sea snake, undulating in sinuous arcs, black and white stripes trailing behind a body that never quite lifts from the sediment. Then, without warning, the pattern softens, the body flattens, and the creature morphs into a flounder, both eyes now set on one side, fins stretching wide as it drifts sideways over the bottom. Within seconds, it lifts again, arms reconfiguring like pliable scaffolding, and now it's a lionfish, spine-like appendages flared in a show of venomous beauty. But this is none of those things. This is Thomoctopus mimicus, the mimic octopus, and nothing it presents is what it truly is. Unlike its reef-dwelling relatives, the mimic octopus lives in silty, open plains, monotone habitats where camouflage by coloration alone is rarely enough. These environments lack the high-contrast coral architecture that other octopuses use for cover. Here, the terrain is soft, featureless, and exposed. Evolution, in response, did not grant this octopus better speed or stronger weapons. It gave it impersonation. The mimic octopus isn't the only cephalopod to change shape or color. Most octopuses can shift patterns rapidly thanks to chromatophores, pigment-filled cells that expand or contract to create a living skin display. Iridophores reflect light, adding shimmer, while papillae raise or smooth the skin to mimic textures like coral or rock. But the mimic octopus takes this further. It does not simply blend, it performs. The species was first described in the late 90s off the coast of Sulawesi, Indonesia. Initial observations startled researchers, not just because of the color change, but because the animal clearly altered its body language to mimic specific species, and not just any species, dangerous or unpalatable ones. When threatened by territorial damselfish, the octopus tucked 6 arms into its burrow and raised the remaining 2, stiff and banded, waving them like the twin heads of a sea snake. Sea snakes, especially Laticauda species, are aggressive fish hunters. Damselfish flee from them. The act worked. But mimicry doesn't stop at intimidation. Sometimes the mimic chooses to appear non-threatening. To sneak past a territorial crab, it flattens and glides like a harmless soulfish. When surrounded by territorial jawfish, it adopts the floating posture and color of a drifting jellyfish. It is not a single disguise, but a toolbox, one that adjusts depending on the audience. This implies an extraordinary level of cognitive processing. The mimic octopus doesn't just change skin, it chooses characters based on context. What's more, the mimic octopus often selects species that are locally familiar to its observers. In waters where lionfish are common threats, it mimics lionfish. In snake-heavy zones, sea snake mimicry is more frequent. This adaptive plasticity, adjusting the performance based on regional fauna, suggests an awareness of its audience that borders on tactical. It's as if the octopus reads the social and ecological atmosphere of its neighborhood and selects its outfit accordingly. While most camouflage strategies are reactive, meant to avoid detection, the mimic octopus turns deception into proactive manipulation. This isn't just hiding, it's rebranding, and it's effective. Its body is designed for these tricks. Unlike reef octopuses, T. mimicus has longer, more tapered arms, each capable of rigid extension. This gives it the structure to imitate spines, flippers, or tentacles. It also moves differently, more fluidly than its cousins, with motions choreographed more like swimming performances than crawling locomotion. The body is pale, with strong brown or black markings, neutral enough to serve as base for many disguises. Unlike animals that rely solely on skin pattern, it pairs movement and posture with color in a complete behavioral illusion. And while it's most famous for impersonating toxic or venomous animals, there are subtle shades of deception in its less obvious behaviors. On quiet hunting forays, the mimic may resemble sandfish or small groupers, blending in as just another low-tier forager. It avoids triggering alarm in nearby prey, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It also mimics the gait of injured animals, wobbling or fluttering to lure scavengers close, only to ambush them with sudden precision. It is not bound to one strategy. Its entire existence is an improvisational con. What's even more astonishing is the lack of internal structure. Like other octopuses, the mimic has no skeleton, no rigid shape to guide its form. Every impersonation is a full-body transformation. There are no templates, just memories, observations, and instinctual choreography. Scientists still debate whether these behaviors are learned or inherited. Likely it's a combination. Juveniles may inherit a genetic preference for certain disguises, then refine them through trial and error. The result is a behavioral mosaic, constantly adapting, constantly learning. But deception comes with limits. The mimic octopus is still vulnerable. Its tissues are soft, its size relatively small. It lacks ink sacs, which most octopuses use as a last-ditch defense. Instead, it relies entirely on its showmanship. A failed performance can mean death. But for T. mimicus, performance is survival. And when it works, it does more than save its life. It grants access to hunting grounds, evasion routes, and opportunities that other cephalopods would never risk. Its habitat reflects this strategic choice. Mudflats may seem barren, but they are rich in cryptic prey, shrimp, gobies, small crustaceans. Few predators specialize in these grounds because of their exposure. But the mimic, with its bag of disguises, makes a living here by becoming whatever the situation requires. Where others see risk, it sees a stage. In many ways, the mimic octopus is an evolutionary commentary on the power of perception. It has no claws, no shell, no poison. Its survival is built entirely on managing how others see it. And in a world where being seen means being eaten, there is no more valuable skill than choosing who you appear to be. Among the reef's cast of assassins, strategists, and saboteurs, T. mimicus is something else entirely. Not a fighter, not a builder, a shapeshifter, a living illusion. It wins not through strength, but through suggestion. By hijacking the mental models of others, manipulating expectations, and disappearing into false identities. The mimic octopus is not merely a creature of the sea. It is a con artist in gelatinous form, rewriting the laws of visibility, one impersonation at a time. As the tide slips back into the sea, the reef is laid bare beneath a dappled sky. Pools shimmer in the hollows of the rock, and fragments of coral glint beneath the water's surface like the scattered shards of a shattered cathedral. Life here is in constant flux. Fish dart between gaps in the reef. Mollusks burrow into soft patches of sand. And among the rubble, almost imperceptibly, small armored shapes shift and twitch, perfectly matched to their background. These are decorator crabs, members of a clandestine order of crustaceans, whose survival depends not on force, speed, or venom, but on theft, disguise, and a peculiar form of biological hacking. At a glance, a decorator crab appears to be just another lumpy piece of the reef. Its shell is irregular, coated in algae, coral fragments, even bits of sponge or shell. It's a walking collage of the seafloor, a mobile fortress stitched together with stolen parts. But beneath this deceptive wardrobe lies a surprisingly complex organism, one that understands, in its own instinctual way, how to use the world around it not just to hide, but to weaponize. The crabs belong to various families across the superfamily Majoidea, and while not all are decorators in the strict sense, the behavior is widespread. What sets them apart isn't merely their ability to attach material to their shells, it's their selection process. These animals don't decorate randomly. They are selective. Some prefer toxic materials like stinging hydroids or venomous sea anemones, using living organisms as defensive turrets. Others focus on camouflage, choosing soft algae or sponges that blend into their specific habitat. And some combine both, blending in while ensuring that anything trying to eat them will regret the attempt. The modification process is meticulous. With specially adapted hooked setae, stiff hair-like structures that act like Velcro, These crabs anchor bits of living tissue and debris onto their exoskeletons. Using their claws like tweezers, they snip, shape and place items onto their backs, legs and claws. The process can take hours, but once the armor is assembled, it is worn constantly, updated and repaired as needed. If a piece falls off, it is replaced. If the crab molts, it starts the process again from scratch, often salvaging old pieces from its shed exoskeleton before predators or competitors can. But what's most fascinating is not just the attachment of armor, it's the strategic theft behind it. Decorator crabs often borrow from live sources. They'll clip off pieces of poisonous anemones or hydroids, carrying them away in their claws like prized contraband. Some even coax small sea anemones to live permanently on their shells, forming a symbiotic relationship where the crab gains defense and the anemone gains mobility and food scraps. This isn't just armor. This is living, growing biological infrastructure. In some species, crabs go a step further. They have been documented stealing shells, ornaments, and even decorations from other crabs, especially during molting, when the exoskeleton softens and individuals become vulnerable. A crab in need of better defense might stalk a neighbor, snip away its best sponge fragment or anemone turret, and flee before retaliation. These acts, though seemingly simple, suggest a surprising level of spatial and visual processing. The crab isn't just reacting, it's assessing value, location, and timing. It's burglary, scaled down to 6 legs. This behavior begins early. Juvenile crabs, only millimeters across, begin decorating themselves soon after hatching. Initially, they use whatever is available, often microalgae or sediment, but as they grow, they begin selecting with greater sophistication. Some species, like Camposia retusa, use soft corals with known chemical defenses. Others prefer fire sponge or toxic tunicates. It's not enough to blend in. They want consequences for any predator that makes a mistake. And make no mistake, the threats are real. Decorator crabs are slow, small, and otherwise vulnerable. They cannot outswim predators like groupers or wrasses, nor do they possess the crushing claws of larger crabs like the coconut crab or stone crab. Their defense is psychological. They bet everything on looking like nothing, or worse, like something dangerous. Fish that taste hydroid once seldom try again. Moray eels that get a mouthful of sponge quickly learn to spit. Some decorator crabs go beyond defense and venture into what can only be described as visual sabotage. By blending into their environment too well, they can also ambush small prey. They aren't true predators in the conventional sense, but when opportunity strikes, a brine shrimp brushes too close, or a worm emerges to feed, they can snatch it with surprising speed. In these cases, the armor becomes more than protection. It becomes a veil behind which opportunism flourishes. This strategy is mirrored in their reproductive behavior. During mating, males will sometimes remove or rearrange the decorations of a female, not to harm her, but to gain access or signal intent. Some species are known to pause their decorating entirely during vulnerable periods, preferring speed over stealth. These behavioral shifts suggest that the armor isn't just a reflex, it's a tool adapted to changing circumstances. The crab doesn't simply wear its environment, it negotiates with it. Even humans have found themselves inadvertently involved. In some reef zones frequented by divers, decorator crabs have been seen carrying fragments of plastic or man-made debris, snippets of netting, labels, or even artificial sponges. The crab does not care whether the material is natural, it only cares whether it functions. If it sticks, blends, or burns, it's good enough. In a strange way, the decorator crab has become a curator of human error, adding our discarded waste into its natural armor. Yet despite their resourcefulness, decorator crabs are still underappreciated in reef ecology. Their role is not flashy or central. They don't reshape ecosystems or prey on keystone species, but they reveal something deeper. How survival in the ocean isn't always about dominance. Sometimes it's about ingenuity, adaptability. The ability to use the tools at hand, even if those tools are alive, dangerous, or previously owned by someone else. In the silent war for reef survival, where visibility often means death, the decorator crab plays by its own rules. It dresses in others' danger, wears the reef like a cloak, and if necessary, robs its neighbor to upgrade its defense. It is not a predator. It is not prey. It is something more cunning, a collector of power that isn't its own, and it walks the reef in borrowed armor, invisible only until you look too closely. In the quiet waters of a temperate reef, where eelgrass sways like soft metronomes and rays of filtered sunlight crease the sandy bottom, a gathering begins. Dozens of cuttlefish hover just above the substrate, tentacles relaxed but ready, their bodies shimmering with an endless cascade of color. The air, if there were any, would be electric. This is not a hunt. It's a display, an aquatic ballroom where every shimmer, pulse and ripple carries weight. Beneath the calm choreography lies a storm of deception, strategy and reproductive warfare. In this arena, the best liar wins. The giant Australian cuttlefish is the largest of its kind, with males often reaching half a meter in length and weighing several kilograms. During mating season, they converge in large numbers along rocky coastal areas, especially in South Australia's Spencer Gulf. Here, they compete for access to females. Larger males dominate through intimidation, flaring their limbs, flashing their chromatophores in bold, contrast-heavy patterns, and expanding their arms to exaggerate size. These dominant displays often lead to confrontations, short, violent grapples that end with one male driven off and the victor claiming the right to guard a female as she lays her eggs in rock crevices. But not every male plays by those rules. Among the crowd, a smaller male approaches. He is clearly outsized, no match in strength or stature. Yet he does not flee. As he drifts closer to the mating pair, something extraordinary happens. The side of his body facing the dominant male morphs in color and posture to resemble a female. Muted tones, subdued patterns, limbs tucked rather than splayed. But the other side, facing the actual female, flickers with an intricate courtship display, soft ripples of iridescence dancing across his skin. The transformation is seamless, and the deception is complete. He is a male masquerading as a female on one flank, seducing with confidence on the other. This is not random mimicry. It is intentional, bilateral signaling, different messages sent simultaneously to different audiences. And it works. While the alpha male guards the female, assuming he is flanked by a harmless onlooker, the disguised male mates with her. A brief copulatory exchange, unnoticed and unchallenged. In evolutionary terms, it's subversion of the highest order, a stealthy genetic heist pulled off under the nose of a bouncer. Cuttlefish possess one of the most advanced camouflage and signaling systems in the animal kingdom. Their skin contains 3 layers of pigment cells, chromatophores, iridophores, and leucophores, each capable of manipulating light in different ways. These allow them to generate thousands of color combinations, rapidly change textures, and project moving patterns across their bodies. These tools are not just for hiding from predators. They are for communication, misdirection, and in the case of reproductive strategies, manipulation. While dominant males rely on brute presence and vigilance, sneaker males adapt through deception. Some mimic juveniles to appear non-threatening. Others stay just outside visual range, darting in when the guarding male is distracted. But the bilateral split, the Janus-faced trick, is the most astonishing of all. It requires not only color control, but situational awareness and behavioral coordination. The cuttlefish must know who is looking, from which angle, and what signal will reduce suspicion while advancing intent. It is tactical misdirection embedded in flesh. The complexity doesn't end there. Females have agency in this story. They are not passive recipients of sperm. In fact, they store sperm from multiple males in specialized cavities and selectively use it to fertilize eggs. Studies show that females often favor sperm from sneaker males, suggesting that cleverness may outweigh brute force in reproductive success. Whether this is due to genetic compatibility, reduced harassment, or an attraction to subtlety remains unclear, but the outcome is consistent. Deception pays. And in a species with a short lifespan, typically 1 to 2 years, reproductive opportunities are limited and precious. Every encounter matters. There is no room for wasted displays or futile fights. The sneaker strategy, while risky, offers a chance for smaller or later maturing males to pass on their genes without engaging in battles they are sure to lose. It adds a layer of social complexity to a world already rich in visual language. Cuttlefish courtship is a visual symphony. Courtship displays involve rhythmic waves of color, undulating patterns that can mesmerize, disorient, or entice. These displays are often customized for the moment, subtle when seeking privacy, explosive when fending off rivals. Their arms, too, are expressive, coiled tightly in shyness or flared dramatically to exaggerate mass. Even the position of their eyes, ringed in color-changing skin, communicates intent. Every inch of the body speaks, and what it says depends entirely on who's watching. Interestingly, cuttlefish appear to understand the concept of audience. In laboratory experiments, males altered their signaling based on whether a rival male could see them. If the rival was behind a barrier, the male used full courtship colors. If the rival was in view, they toned down displays or employed sneak tactics. This situational modulation suggests cognitive flexibility, a basic theory of mind. They don't just react, they strategize. The double-agent approach isn't limited to one species. Variations of these tactics appear across other cephalopods, including the common European cuttlefish. The behaviors aren't anomalies. They are part of a wider suite of reproductive strategies that showcase the versatility and cunning of this group. In a lineage already known for camouflage, the true brilliance lies not just in vanishing, but in being seen the right way, by the right target at the right time. What makes all of this more impressive is that cuttlefish are not social animals in the traditional sense. They don't live in pods like dolphins or maintain hierarchies like primates. They live solitary lives outside of breeding aggregations. Yet in those fleeting windows of social interaction, they display a depth of behavioral complexity that rivals species known for long-term relationships and social memory. It's a different kind of intelligence, episodic, opportunistic, but no less intricate. Their brain-to-body ratio is among the highest of invertebrates, and their learning capacity is formidable. They solve mazes, remember object patterns, and even distinguish between shapes and quantities. When applied to reproductive tactics, this intelligence becomes a tool not just for survival, but for subterfuge. Every pulse of skin color, every shift in posture is a calculated move in a silent chess game played in shifting sand and kelp shadows. So while much of the marine world is governed by brute contests and open displays of power, the cuttlefish writes a different rulebook. It favors misdirection over aggression, precision over noise. In a single movement, it can play victim, predator, and lover, slipping between roles like water through fingers. In this liquid theater, the stage is always shifting, but the act remains the same, to be seen as something you are not, in order to achieve what others think you cannot. The cuttlefish doesn't fight for love. It deceives for it, expertly, silently, and sometimes with two faces at once. In the sun-drenched waters of the Indo-Pacific shallows, where coral fingers reach toward the surface and the water dances with reflections of mangrove leaves, a serpentine figure glides just above the reef. Its black and white bands pulse gently with each undulation, moving with a precision that suggests no urgency, no threat. Reef fish dart casually by, paying it little attention. To them, it smells like something familiar, perhaps a rabbitfish or a wrasser. But this is no herbivore. This is Laticauda colubrina, the banded sea crate, and its approach is anything but innocent. Sea snakes, often overlooked in discussions of marine predators, are among the most uniquely adapted reptiles on Earth. Evolving from land-dwelling elapids millions of years ago, they've shed legs for flippers, lungs for elongated air sacs, and desert camouflage for patterns that ripple like warning flags through salt water. Most species live entirely at sea, rarely, if ever, returning to land. Some, like the banded sea crate, still venture onto beaches to lay eggs. Others, like hydrophis, have gone fully aquatic, giving birth to live young underwater and surviving without ever setting scale on dry ground. But all share a defining feature: venom that ranks among the most potent in the animal kingdom. And yet, despite this potency, sea snakes are not reckless. They do not strike with abandon. They are precise hunters, navigating a three-dimensional maze of coral, sponge, and shadow, where success relies as much on deception as it does on speed. In recent years, researchers have uncovered evidence that one of their most effective tools isn't visual camouflage or raw speed, but chemical misdirection. Sea snakes, it appears, are masters of olfactory mimicry. For a long time, the emphasis in predator-prey dynamics underwater focused on sight and motion. But in the microcurrents of the reef, scent carries powerfully. Many fish and invertebrates navigate their world through chemoreception, detecting trace chemicals in the water to identify food, mates, and threats. Sea snakes have learned to exploit this system. By masking their own chemical signature, or even mimicking the scent profiles of non-threatening species, they can move through sensitive zones undetected. The effect is similar to forging ID in a scent-based society. The predator pretends to be someone else, gains access, then strikes. This olfactory fraud doesn't happen through conscious thought, but through evolved physiology. Studies on sea snake skin secretions suggest that some species can suppress or modulate their natural scent emissions, minimizing cues that would alert prey. In some scenarios, they may even pick up ambient scent particles, either through behavior like rubbing against sediment or passive diffusion, allowing them to blend in with the chemical backdrop of their environment. A snake approaching a school of gobies doesn't smell like a snake. It smells like another fish. By the time the illusion breaks, it's already too late. This strategy becomes especially useful when targeting species that rely heavily on smell to detect danger. Small benthic fish, crustaceans, and even certain cephalopods initiate escape responses not based on sight, but on chemical change in the water. A moray eel emits distinct olfactory markers. A shark's arrival is a perfume of death. But a sea snake that masks its trail can slip into range undetected, wrapping its body around prey with shocking speed and injecting venom so fast that escape becomes irrelevant. The strike is swift, the death silent. The only warning was a lie. Beyond hunting, this olfactory manipulation may also serve in predator avoidance. Sea snakes, despite their venom, are preyed upon by tiger sharks, sea eagles, and occasionally large groupers. By emitting a scent profile that mimics non-edible species, or suppressing their own, sea snakes may reduce the risk of unwanted attention. This form of scent deception functions like ghosting in the ecological network, to exist without being found. Adding to this complexity is the fact that sea snakes lack Jacobson's organs, a feature common in terrestrial snakes used to analyze scent particles. Instead, they rely on tongue flicking to collect chemical cues and specialized olfactory receptors within their nasal cavities to interpret them. Their tongues are reduced and paddle-like, adapted to sample water rather than air. Despite this, their chemosensory capabilities remain acute, suggesting a sophisticated underwater sensory world that remains largely invisible to us. But deception isn't limited to scent. Sea snakes use mimicry in movement and behavior too. Some species adopt the posture and swim patterns of less threatening fish. Others flatten their bodies to resemble floating seaweed or slip between coral branches like eels. Combined with their chemical disguise, these strategies create a multi-layered illusion. To an observer relying on smell, motion, and pattern, the predator is everything it shouldn't be, until it strikes. The banded sea crate, one of the more studied species, demonstrates a hybrid approach. When on land, it moves with awkward effort, dragging its body over sand and rock. But in water, it becomes fluid and deliberate. It hunts in crevices, rooting out eels and small fish with a flickering tongue and a slow, deliberate coil. Its venom, neurotoxic and fast-acting, allows it to immobilize prey in moments, but rarely does it chase. Instead, it gets close, deceptively close, and ends the hunt before the prey knows it began. In certain reef systems, sea kraits are observed hunting cooperatively with fish species like goatfish or trevallies. The fish stir up prey from sandy bottoms, while the snake investigates the crevices into which those prey flee. This unlikely alliance, though temporary, shows that sea snakes can coexist and interact with species they might otherwise target, perhaps aided by their chemical disguise, which prevents the fish from treating them as a threat. Whether accidental or an evolved tactic, the result is the same: shared success. Yet even the best lies unravel eventually. Some reef inhabitants have developed partial resistance or suspicion. Juvenile fish raised in high snake density areas show faster response times, darting away more rapidly than counterparts from low snake zones. Some shrimp species have adapted to detect movement cues that bypass the scent system altogether. The arms race continues. Still, in the hierarchy of marine manipulation, sea snakes remain a class apart. They do not brute force their way through the ecosystem. They manipulate its rules, insinuate themselves between its sensory systems, and exploit its blind spots. Theirs is a strategy built not on power, but on the ability to pass unnoticed. In the shadowy world beneath the surface, where every ripple carries a story and every chemical trace a warning, the sea snake whispers a false one. It glides, scentless and silent, a lie wrapped in scales, and the reef listens, but hears nothing. Beneath the surface of the world's oceans lies an ecosystem governed not by fairness or order, but by adaptation, exploitation, and opportunism. To the untrained eye, a coral reef may look like a garden, vivid, abundant, harmonious. Fish dart between coral heads in bursts of color. Sea fans sway gently in the current, and soft light flickers across a textured landscape alive with motion. But stay longer, observe more closely, and the illusion begins to erode. This isn't a peaceful world. It is a battlefield of intelligence, misdirection, and biological crime, a place where strength alone is insufficient, and where the rules of engagement are written in deception. Across the reef, every species, predator and prey alike, employs tactics that would, in any human society, be considered underhanded. Octopuses, for instance, don't just hunt. They break into tanks, raid crab burrows, and vanish into crevices with stolen meals. Their behavior mirrors that of calculated burglars, combining mechanical skill with memory and spatial reasoning. They have been documented unscrewing lids, manipulating obstacles, and even lying in wait inside empty shells to ambush unsuspecting passers-by. Their genius lies not in brute strength, but in planning, escape, and control. In another world, they would be master thieves. Dolphins, on the other hand, operate more like organized syndicates. Their societies are built on alliances, coercion, and often intimidation. Male coalitions have been observed isolating females, coordinating harassment to assert control, and displaying aggression toward outsiders, including other species. Their intelligence, often romanticized in popular media, manifests in deeply strategic, often ruthless social behavior. In some regions, dolphins are known to kill porpoises for reasons unrelated to food or territory, violence that seems to serve no purpose beyond reinforcing social dominance. They don't just survive, they rule. Moray eels offer a quieter model of exploitation. Hiding deep within the coral's hidden corridors, they let others, groupers, rays, even divers, do the work. When groupers initiate hunts, morays often slip into the action late, stealing kills or intercepting fleeing prey without contributing to the effort. Sometimes they collaborate with other predators, but often the line between partnership and manipulation blurs. They are the silent accomplices, the opportunists waiting in the shadows until someone else pays the cost. Even creatures as seemingly passive as sea cucumbers engage in behavior that borders on biological warfare. When provoked or when territory becomes scarce, they eject their toxic guts onto nearby animals, not to escape, but to eliminate competitors. This isn't defense, it's chemical assault, and while their actions go unnoticed by most casual observers, they reshape the dynamics of the benthic zone by altering who can occupy space and who gets pushed out by sheer chemical force. Lionfish are the mafia of the invaded reef. Unchecked by predators, cloaked in chemical invisibility, and armed with venomous spines, they've expanded across the Atlantic, leaving devastated fish communities in their wake. They eat everything, fear nothing, and operate with impunity. Native fish, unable to detect their scent or anticipate their strategies, fall to them in waves. In some areas, biodiversity collapses. The lionfish is not a member of the reef. It is an invader, a gangster with no allegiance to balance or biodiversity. Mimic octopuses and cuttlefish, by contrast, represent the masterclass of con artistry. They manipulate perception at every level, using their skin as a projection screen and their limbs as puppeteering tools. One moment a sea snake, the next a lionfish, the next a harmless flounder. These creatures rewrite their identity in real time, tailoring their performance to fool predators, prey, or rivals. Cuttlefish take this deception into the reproductive arena, impersonating females to sneak past alpha males and mate right under their noses. This is not accidental camouflage. It's calculated theater. Decorator crabs turn theft into architecture. They steal living weapons, anemones, hydroids, sponges, and affix them to their shells like portable fortresses. Some even rip defenses from other crabs, fashioning their own mobile armory from stolen parts. Their lives are a quiet act of scavenged sabotage, dressing in the danger of others and hiding in plain sight. If they were larger, they'd be seen as tanks. But at their scale, they are guerrilla agents of deception. And then there are the sea snakes, weaving silently between coral heads with a scent profile stolen from others. Recent studies suggest some species chemically impersonate harmless reef fish to avoid detection by prey or predators. Their venom is fast, their strike surgical, but it is their ability to bypass the reef's olfactory alarm system that truly makes them deadly. They are ghosts, sensed too late if at all, What ties all of these species together isn't their lineage or their role in the food web. It's their use of strategy over strength, of manipulation over mayhem. The reef does not reward the loudest or the largest. It rewards those who can outthink, outmaneuver, or outlast. In the open sea, a predator's success is limited by energy cost. Chasing prey across a reef burns calories. Ambush, deception, and theft, by contrast, are efficient. These behaviors are not rare exceptions. They are the operating system of the ecosystem. Even prey species have adapted accordingly. Some fish mimic the appearance of more dangerous species to deter attacks. Others feign death or injury to lure predators into disadvantageous positions. Some crustaceans build false burrow entrances or scatter decoys to confuse their pursuers. The reef is a theater of lies, where every movement, every pattern, every ripple of color might conceal a deeper motive. In this world, justice is not a force, it's a vulnerability. There are no referees, no enforcers of fairness. What survives is what adapts, even if that means subverting the very structure that supports it. Symbiosis and mutualism exist, but even these are fragile. Balanced on mutual need, constantly renegotiated, and quick to collapse if one partner learns to cheat. Cleaner fish can become biters. Hosts can expel symbionts. Algae and coral may work together, until stress tips one into parasitism. There is no higher court to appeal to. The rules are made moment to moment, and the deeper you go, the stranger it gets. In the twilight zones where light fades and pressure rises, creatures abandon even the pretense of fairness. Anglerfish wave bioluminescent lures that promise food but deliver fangs. Barrelly fish with transparent heads track prey through overlapping fields of vision. Parasitic isopods take over tongues. The reef's code of manipulation continues into the abyss, its creativity unchecked by sunlight or human morality. The ocean's web of life is not neat. It is tangled, duplicitous, and alive with invention. Every trick, every strategy, every exploit is a note in a vast, dissonant symphony of survival. Justice does not swim here, but ingenuity does. And in a world with no rules, the only crime is failing to adapt.